As we see, organizations accelerating development across many workloads, right? Across their complex IT landscape and bunch of legacy applications, right? And their new AI and data analytics apps. How do we see the AI is developing from life sciences to finance to academic research, all these complex models being developed, as you mentioned, but at the same time, what role technology companies will be playing? Intel is one of them, of course. So could you please show us the way, what's changing today, this year?
This is it's like I told you, we're absolutely at the inflection point, right? I mean, we can exponentially grow our AI capabilities across. I'm talking about not just Intel, I'm talking about the whole industry as a whole. But we got to do the right things. And one thing that when it comes to organizations, when it comes to enterprises, one thing that I want to establish, it's beyond just AI benchmark, right? It's beyond, okay, what's the performance of a specific type of hardware for a specific benchmark. Because when you think about enterprises, as I told you, it's a pipeline. It's an AI pipeline that they're looking at. They're looking at data prep, right? There are different steps in data prep. So that's the number one step. That you can think about data collection, you can think about data ingestion, labeling, validation, all of those pre-processing that needs to be done at the data level. So that's one aspect, right? And then you have the model itself. I mean, it could either be model creation, depending on what sort of data sets you're actually working on, or you're basically kind of like looking at, fine-tuning an existing model, or retraining an existing model, right? So it's really about enabling the right models and optimizing the models for your application, right? And then finally, it's really about the deployment, right? So it's data prep, it's model creation and model optimization, and then deployment. So all of these three steps are important, right? So all of these three steps, I mean, so that's what I'm telling. It's for enterprises, it's kind of like a pipeline. They don't look at it as, okay, this is, okay, my platform or my use case is actually kind of like is going to perform absolutely perfectly if I get this one particular AI benchmark, number right. So it's beyond that, right? It's about this pipeline. So I mean, I think so when you think about it, right? So it's important for technology companies also. So let's just unpack this for a second, right? So you have, even in this pipeline, you have at the lowest level, you have hardware, right? So there's hardware selection. So depending on, your application, you either kind of like are using CPUs or a bunch of CPUs, or you basically have a CPU plus GPU, for example, or accelerator, for example. So you need to have specialized hardware, right, to some extent, in order to kind of, enable optimized AI computation. And equally important is this middle layers of software tools and libraries and frameworks and ops and all of those infrastructure that needs to be enabled in order to kind of like make development of applications on top across, say, data prep or model creation or deployment as easy as possible. So that's that's key, right? So often what happens is, today, I mean, to some extent, like technology companies or hardware companies basically enable the hardware, right? And then there are, massive software companies, ISVs, for example, who are actually working on different tool sets. Now, it's really kind of like critical for us as a community to come together and create that open platform, right? That can aid, data scientists sitting in enterprise companies through the pipeline, right? So, okay, optimize a platform that's actually optimized for data prep, the same platform that can actually be, used for model creation or model optimization, and the same platform that can actually be created for deployment, right? So one example, and the stuff that we are actually working on. So we recently launched the 4th generation Xeon scalable processors, right? Codenamed Sapphire Rapids, as you may know. So. And when I go back and talk about specialized hardware for AI, so the 4th generation Xeon scalable processors actually have specialized accelerators integrated within those CPUs to do like advanced vector or matrix computations. So, what it essentially means is you can actually do a reasonable amount of training. You can absolutely do inferencing, right? So going back to the pipeline that I'm talking about, the Xeon processors can actually be used for data prep, right? So you can actually kind of, do all of the steps that I just highlighted in terms of data steps using the right tool sets. You can actually do the model creation. So it's the same platform that can actually enable model creation, right? And then you can also basically do the deployment, which is largely inference, right? So it's important for us to basically think about, again, from an end user's perspective, who is sitting in any of these vertical businesses that we talked about, and see how can we enable the software framework? How can we make it easy for the end users to just not worry about which hardware I have to actually enable? How do I, pick which software tool from which area and things like that? But just focus on, okay, here's my data set. This is what I want to get to. Can I get a universal platform that can help me, right? So, by the way, again, we have some ways to go there, right? And I'm just talking about CPUs right now. I just gave an example with just CPUs, but AI is a heterogeneous workload, right? So you need the CPUs, you need accelerators and stuff like that. But it's very essential for us to basically focus on this platform view, right? And that's what companies like Intel and others are actually kind of working on right now. And hopefully we'll kind of like solve those problems, some of these problems that the data scientists are actually kind of facing today. And that's our goal.